The sun had almost disappeared behind the rusty mountains of the desert planet Vara 9. The sky burned with colors of orange and red, and the wind carried dust that tasted like metal. Inside an old repair hangar at the edge of the small colony, a man named Rylan was working alone. He was a human mechanic, quiet and tired, his hands always covered in oil and burns from machines older than he was. Every day he fixed ships for traders and miners, earning just enough to feed his little daughter. The hangar smelled of hot iron and burnt fuel, but to Rylan, it was the smell of life, hard, lonely, and honest. His daughter Mira, a small girl with bright brown eyes and tangled hair, sat near the workbench, swinging her legs as she played with a broken robot toy her father had once repaired for her. She was only 6 years old but already knew how to hold a wrench and pass tools to her father when he asked. The two lived alone in a small metal hut near the hangar. Rylan never talked much about Myra's mother. All anyone knew was that she had died during the Human-Dragon War, years ago. A war that had burned across the stars and left many broken hearts behind. The night was quiet, too quiet. Even the sandstorms that often howled through the canyons had gone still. Only the hum of Rylan's plasma cutter broke the silence. He was focused, fixing a damaged power core, when he suddenly felt a strange chill crawl down his spine. He stopped working. For a moment he thought he heard something. A faint sound, like a whisper carried by the wind. He listened harder, and then it came again. A sound unlike anything human. It was soft but filled with pain, almost like the cry of a wounded animal. Mira looked up. "Daddy," she said in a small voice. "Someone's crying." Rylan frowned. He turned off the plasma cutter, and the hangar fell into silence. The sound came again, closer this time. It was a low, trembling cry that seemed to come from behind the junk piles in the corner. Rylan's heart began to beat faster. He knew that sound. He had heard it once before. During the war, he remembered fire raining from the sky, soldiers screaming, and a creature with golden eyes soaring above them. A creature they called the Dragon Lady. Half human, half dragon, she was one of the last survivors of her kind. She could breathe fire, fly through storms, and tear through armored vehicles like paper. But when the war ended, the dragons vanished. Some killed, some hiding in the dark corners of the galaxy. And now, somehow, one was here. Rylan slowly put down his tool. His hands were shaking. He whispered, "Stay here, Mira." But the girl, curious and fearless, slipped off the workbench and followed him quietly. The sound of soft crying led them behind a pile of old ship wings and engine parts. The air there was cold and damp. And then they saw her. The Dragon Lady was lying on the ground, half covered by a torn cloak. Her once majestic wings were broken, folded awkwardly against her body. Her skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, scales of silver and blue that looked cracked and burned. Chains were wrapped around her wrists, heavy and rusted. She looked weak, starving, her golden eyes dull with pain. But even in that broken state, she looked powerful, like a storm that had forgotten how to rage. Mira gasped softly. The Dragon Lady turned her head, her eyes glowing faintly as they met the child's innocent gaze. Rylan quickly stepped in front of his daughter. "Don't move," he whispered. But the creature didn't attack. She only watched them silently, her chest rising and falling with slow, painful breaths. Then a single tear rolled down her cheek. Mira tugged on her father's sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, why is the Dragon Lady crying? Should I give her my lunch?" Rylan froze. The question cut through his fear like a knife. Mira held a small lunchbox, half a sandwich and a few fruits. She had saved it for later. He wanted to say no. He wanted to tell her that the Dragon Lady was dangerous, that she was the enemy, that helping her could get them both killed. But when he looked at the creature again, something in her eyes made him hesitate. There was no hate there, only sadness and hunger. The war had taught Rylan one thing: no one truly wins. Everyone loses something. Maybe this creature had lost more than he could imagine. Maybe she was crying for the same reason he sometimes did, because the world had taken everything and left only silence. He knelt down beside Mira. "Listen carefully," he said. You stay here. Don't go near her. Mira nodded, but her little hands were already opening the lunchbox. Before Rylan could stop her, she stepped forward. The dragon lady tensed, her claws digging into the dirt. But Mira only smiled softly and placed the food near her. You can have it, she said. It's okay. Daddy says everyone needs food to live. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the dragon lady reached out her trembling hand. Her claws were long and sharp, but gentle. She picked up the food and sniffed it carefully. Her eyes met Myra's again, and something unspoken passed between them. A fragile thread of kindness in a world that had forgotten such things. Rylan watched in silence, his heart heavy with fear and confusion. He didn't understand why his daughter felt no fear, why she looked at the dragon lady not as a monster, but as someone who was hurt. Then the dragon lady spoke, her voice low and broken. Human child, why? Mira tilted her head. Because you're sad, she said simply. The dragon lady closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt warmth, not from fire, but from something softer. Something she thought her kind had destroyed long ago. Rylan knew this was dangerous. If the colony guards discovered a dragon in his hangar, he and Mira would be executed for treason. But as he looked at the two of them, his small daughter and the creature who had once been his enemy, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe the universe wasn't as cruel as he thought. Maybe it was trying to heal itself through small acts of kindness. Outside, thunder rolled over the desert horizon. The night grew darker, and Rylan knew that from this moment on, nothing in his life would ever be the same. The dragon lady was no longer just a secret. She was a promise, a danger, and perhaps a friend. And somewhere deep inside the hangar, hidden under the dust and shadows, a small machine blinked red, recording everything. Someone somewhere was watching. The night on Vara 9 grew colder, and the desert winds began to sing their lonely song across the metal roofs of the colony. Inside the old hangar, the air was heavy, not with the smell of oil and smoke this time, but with something Rylan could not name. He stood still, his hands shaking slightly, watching the dragon lady eat from his daughter's lunchbox. Every move she made was slow, careful, and full of pain. Mira sat close to her father, her eyes wide with wonder, not fear. Daddy, she whispered. She's hungry. Can we give her more? Rylan didn't answer. He didn't know what to do. Every instinct screamed that this was dangerous, that he should call the patrol or get help. But his heart said something else. He looked at the dragon lady again, and in her golden eyes he saw no hate, only exhaustion and something he never thought a creature like her could feel. Guilt. He finally spoke. Who are you? He asked quietly. The dragon lady looked up, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Her voice was soft but carried a strange echo. Once, she said, they called me Commander Sereth of the Draconian Fleet. Rylan's breath caught. He remembered that name. Every soldier did. Commander Sereth was the leader of the final assault against the human colonies, the one who burned 3 cities in a single night. She was the reason thousands died, including, perhaps, Myra's mother. He took a step back, his jaw tightening. You killed my people. Sereth looked down. I know, she said, her voice trembling. And I cry because I can never undo what I did. Her wings trembled, and Rylan saw deep scars along the edges. Long black marks that looked burned by energy weapons. She had been hunted, hurt, maybe even betrayed by her own kind. Why are you here? Rylan asked. Sereth's eyes flickered. Because there is no home left for me, she whispered. When the war ended, my people turned on each other. We were proud, but pride destroys. I escaped the fire only to find myself alone among enemies. I thought if I came to this place, to where humans live, maybe I could find peace. But peace does not want me. For a long time, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint crackle of the hangar's old power generator. Mira looked from her father to the dragon lady and then slowly walked closer. Rylan's heart jumped. Mira, stay back. But Sereth didn't move. She only lowered her head. The little girl stood beside her, small and brave. "You're hurt," Mira said softly. "I can help." She ran to a shelf and grabbed a small first aid box. It was old and rusty, but it still had some bandages and medicine inside. Rylan started to stop her again, but then he saw the look in Saratha's eyes. It was the same look he had seen in soldiers after battles, the look of someone who no longer wanted to fight. Mira knelt beside the dragon lady and began cleaning the blood from her arm. The child's hands were tiny, and her touch was gentle. Sarath flinched slightly at first, but then she relaxed. "You remind me of someone," she whispered. Mira smiled. "My mommy?" Sarath nodded slowly. "Perhaps." Rylan turned away, pretending to check the tools on his bench, but his mind was a storm. He couldn't understand what was happening. This creature, the one who once destroyed everything he loved, was now sitting in his hangar, crying like a lost soul, and his daughter was helping her. He wanted to hate her. He wanted to remember the screams, the smoke, the fire. But every time he looked at her, he saw only a shadow of what she once was. A soldier who had lost everything. "Why didn't you fight back?" Rylan asked suddenly. "If you're who you say you are, you could have killed us." Sarath lifted her head. "Because I don't want to kill anymore," she said. "I've seen enough death. When I saw your child today, offering me food, I realized something. In all our wars, we dragons never understood what strength really was. We thought it came from fire. But now I see, true strength comes from kindness." Her words hit Rylan harder than he expected. He looked at Mira, who was carefully wrapping a bandage around Saratha's wrist. The innocence in her actions made him feel small. Suddenly, a sound came from outside, a sharp metallic beep. Rylan froze. That sound was from the colony's security drones. They were patrolling near the outer walls. If they scanned the hangar and detected Saratha's heat signature, everything would be over. "Lights off," Rylan whispered quickly. He ran to the control panel and killed the power. The hangar fell into darkness. Only the faint glow from Saratha's eyes and the blinking light from a small monitor lit the space. The sound of drones grew louder. They hovered just outside the hangar doors, scanning. Rylan's heart pounded in his chest. He held Mira close, covering her mouth to keep her quiet. Sarath crouched low, folding her broken wings and holding her breath. The scanning light passed through the window, bright, blue, searching. It stopped for a moment near the corner where Sarath was hiding. Rylan gripped a wrench, ready to fight if needed. The light flickered once more, then moved on. The drones left. Silence returned. Rylan exhaled slowly. Mira looked up at him and whispered, "They almost found her daddy." He nodded, still breathing hard. "Yes, and if they do, we'll all be in danger." He turned to Sarath. "You can't stay here. If they find you, they'll destroy this whole place." Sarath looked up with tired eyes. "Then let me go," she said quietly. "I don't want to bring death again." But Mira grabbed her hand. "No, you can stay with us. I'll hide you." Rylan looked at his daughter, speechless. The idea was impossible. But as he looked into her innocent eyes, he realized something. Sometimes children saw the world clearer than adults. He sighed deeply. "All right," he said softly. "You can stay, but only until you heal. After that, you leave. Understand?" Sarath bowed her head. "Thank you, human." Rylan walked to the hangar door and looked out at the stars above. The war had taken everything from him, but maybe, just maybe, it had brought him something unexpected tonight. A chance to forgive. As he turned back, Mira had already fallen asleep beside Sarath, using her tail like a pillow. The dragon lady gently placed a clawed hand over the child, protecting her like a guardian. Rylan watched them for a long moment. Then he whispered to himself, "What are you, really?" And somewhere deep in the desert, under the cold stars, something moved. A dark ship landing silently, its scanners searching for a missing commander. The past was coming for them. The desert morning came slowly on Vara 9, painting the metal dunes with light. The old hangar looked peaceful from the outside, but inside, Rylan hadn't slept at all. He sat at his workbench, staring at the half-repaired shuttle engine, his mind lost in worry. In the corner, Mira was still sleeping, her head resting on the Dragon Lady's folded wing. Sereth, the once feared commander of the Draconian fleet, sat motionless, her golden eyes half open, scanning the shadows. Her wounds were healing slowly, thanks to Myra's small hands and her father's medical tools. But peace never lasted long on Vara 9. Rylan felt it before he heard it. A low hum that trembled through the ground, distant but familiar. The sound of patrol ships. He stood up quickly, walked to the window, and looked up at the pale sky. 3 black dots were moving fast, leaving white trails behind them. He cursed under his breath. They're here. Sereth's eyes snapped open. Who? Rylan turned to her, his face pale. Hunters. The same kind who scan the colonies. But these aren't human drones. They're too fast. Sereth's pupils narrowed. Draconian trackers, she whispered. They've come for me. Rylan felt a cold wave run through him. He had heard stories. These trackers never left survivors. They could smell energy signatures, heat trails, even blood. If they found Sereth here, the whole colony would burn. He walked over to his sleeping daughter and gently shook her awake. Mira, sweetheart, listen to me. You need to hide. Okay? Mira rubbed her eyes. What's wrong, Daddy? Before he could answer, the sky outside cracked with thunder. Not from clouds, but from engines. A sonic boom rolled across the sand, shaking the walls. A dark shadow passed over the hangar. Mira gasped and grabbed her father's arm. Sereth stood up slowly. Her wings stretched halfway before pain made her flinch. They've locked on, she said quietly. They can sense my DNA. They won't stop until they find me. Rylan looked at her, torn between anger and fear. You brought them here. You'll get us all killed. Sereth lowered her head. Then I will leave, she said. I'll draw them away from your home. Mira ran forward. No, you're hurt. They'll kill you. Sereth smiled faintly. Better me than you, little one. Rylan grabbed his old plasma rifle from the wall. It was an outdated weapon, one he hadn't used since the war. He checked the power cell half-charged. You're not going anywhere alone, he said. If they find you, they find me. So we fight together. For a second, Sereth looked at him with surprise and something softer. Respect. Outside, sand lifted into the air as the first hunter ship descended, its wings spreading wide like the claws of a metal bird. Red lights scanned the hangar's roof. Rylan rushed to the control panel and flipped several switches. We'll make it look like the hangar's abandoned, he said. If we're lucky, they'll just scan and leave. But luck had never been kind to him. A robotic voice echoed through the sky, metallic and cold. Commander Sereth, you are ordered to surrender. Your energy signature has been confirmed. Resistance will result in termination. Myra's eyes filled with tears. Daddy. They know her name. Rylan clenched his jaw. Stay with me, Mira. The hangar door shuddered as something heavy landed outside. A bright red laser began cutting through the metal like butter. Sparks rained down. Sereth growled, her claws flexing. No time to hide now. The door split open, and 3 draconian hunters stepped in. They were tall, armored in black scales, their eyes glowing with crimson fire. Their weapons looked alive, pulsing with strange light. One of them spoke. Commander Sereth, you betrayed the draconian code. You let the humans live. For this, you will die as one of them. Sereth's wings opened slightly, her breath steaming in the cold air. I betrayed no one, she said. I just learned what honor really means. The hunters raised their weapons. Rylan shouted, Get down! And fired his plasma rifle. A bolt of blue light hit one of the hunters in the chest, throwing him back against the wall. The others turned toward Rylan instantly. Daddy! Mira screamed. Sereth moved before she could think. Her tail swung wide, smashing into the second hunter. The sound of cracking metal filled the air. Sparks exploded, and the hangar filled with smoke. Rylan coughed, trying to reload his rifle. Sereth roared, the sound shaking the walls. Her broken wings flared with bursts of light, and for a moment, she looked like a creature made of fire and sorrow. The last hunter aimed his weapon at Mira. Ryland's heart stopped. He shouted, "No!" and ran forward. But before the hunter could shoot, Sereth stepped in front of the blast. The beam struck her chest, knocking her backward. She fell hard, smoke rising from her scales. Mira cried out and ran to her. "No! Please wake up!" Ryland fired again, hitting the hunter in the head. The creature collapsed with a heavy thud. The hangar fell silent except for the crackling of burnt metal. Ryland dropped his rifle and knelt beside Sereth. "Stay with me," he said, his voice shaking. Sereth opened her eyes slowly. The golden light in them was fading. "I'm fine," she whispered weakly. "Old fire still burns." Mira hugged her arm. "You saved me." Sereth smiled faintly. "You saved me first." Ryland looked at the bodies of the fallen hunters. He knew this wasn't over. "They'll send more," he said grimly. "They always do." Sereth nodded. "Yes, but next time we run. There's a place far from here, beyond the mines. I know a signal there, one that can stop the hunters from tracking me." Ryland sighed. "Then we'll take you there. But we need to move before the patrols arrive." He packed tools, food, and water while Sereth tried to stand. Mira refused to leave her side. The child held her hand tightly, as if afraid she'd vanish. Outside, the sky was growing dark again, and far above the clouds, a larger ship was descending, its engines glowing like red suns. Ryland looked up and whispered, "They're not done yet." Sereth's eyes glowed brighter, her voice low but fierce. "Then neither am I." They stepped out into the desert together. A human, a child, and a dragon once feared by the stars, walking toward an uncertain fate. Behind them, the hangar burned, sending smoke high into the sky, a silent signal to everyone watching that the hunt had begun. The desert night on Vara 9 was endless. The wind howled like a living thing, carrying with it the smell of smoke and metal from the destroyed hangar. Far from the burning colony lights, 3 shadows moved across the dunes. A man, a child, and something larger, limping but proud. Ryland walked ahead, holding a dim lantern made from an old fusion cell. The light flickered weakly against the sand. Mira rode on the back of Sereth, the dragon lady, who moved carefully, her injured wings folded close. Every step she took left a glowing mark on the ground, as if her blood carried fire. They had been walking for hours, heading toward the old Zara Canyon, where Sereth said there was a hidden cave, a place untouched by human patrols or draconian scanners. But Ryland's mind was heavy. Behind them, he could still see faint red lights in the sky. Hunters searching, scanning, hunting for their lost commander. Mira was quiet for once. Her small hands rested gently on Sereth's scales. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Sereth looked back at her. "I am better," she said. "Your kindness heals faster than medicine." Mira smiled a little. "You sound like my daddy when he fixes broken things." Sereth tilted her head. "Your father fixes machines. You fix hearts." Ryland heard their voices and sighed. "Let's not talk too loud," he warned. "If they catch our signal, we're finished." But deep down, his anger had softened. After everything, the war, the lies, the loss, he had never imagined he would walk beside a dragon and feel calm. As they reached the canyon, lightning cracked across the sky. The wind picked up, throwing sand into their eyes. "Storm's coming," Ryland said. "We need shelter before the sand buries us alive." Sereth's eyes glowed in the dark. "I can smell the cave nearby. Follow me." They pushed through the storm, the sand cutting like glass. Mira hid her face against Sereth's shoulder, whispering softly, "Don't let go." Finally, they reached the mouth of a cave, hidden behind sharp rocks. Ryland guided them inside, collapsing near the wall. The wind screamed outside, but inside the cave it was quiet, almost peaceful. Sereth lowered herself to the ground, her wings trembling from exhaustion. "I haven't felt this kind of storm since my home burned," she said quietly. Rylan looked up from his tools. "You're home." She nodded. The draconian capital before the humans bombed it. Before everything turned to ash. Her voice was cold at first, but then it softened. "I had a sister there, younger than me. She believed humans and dragons could live in peace. I told her she was a fool. She was captured in the war. I never saw her again." Rylan said nothing for a long time. The sound of rain mixed with thunder outside. Then he spoke, his voice low. "I lost someone too. My wife. The day the dragons attacked the city, she was in the medical unit. She never came home." Sereth looked down. The firelight flickered across her face, showing sadness and guilt. "Then we both carry ghosts," she said. Mira listened quietly between them. Her small voice broke the silence. "Maybe the ghosts want you to stop being sad." Rylan smiled faintly. "Maybe you're right." Sereth leaned her head back, eyes half closed. "Your daughter is wise." "She's her mother's soul," Rylan replied softly. The storm outside grew louder, and the air inside the cave trembled with thunder. Rylan took off his jacket and wrapped it around Mira. She snuggled closer to Sereth, using her warm body like a blanket. Sereth watched the sleeping child for a long time. "Human children are fragile," she whispered, "and yet, they are strong. She reminds me of my sister." Rylan stirred the fire, staring into the flames. "What will you do if we make it out of this?" Sereth didn't answer right away. She looked toward the cave entrance, where flashes of light showed the storm raging. "I do not know. I thought I wanted to die in peace. But now, I want to live long enough to protect this child. She is the first light I've seen in years." Rylan looked at her, surprised by the honesty in her voice. "You sound human." Sereth's golden eyes turned toward him. "Maybe kindness makes us all a little human." Before Rylan could answer, the cave walls shook. The fire flickered out. A distant explosion echoed across the canyon. Rylan stood up quickly. "What was that?" Sereth's eyes flashed. "They've found us." Through the storm, a red glow appeared outside, the unmistakable light of a draconian dropship. Its engines burned through the sandstorm, cutting the sky open. Rylan grabbed his rifle. "How did they track us?" "The storm should have hidden our trail." Sereth's wings twitched. "They're not tracking us. They're tracking me. They have a link to my blood, a code burned into my cells. It connects me to the draconian network." "Then how do we stop it?" Rylan asked. Sereth looked at her clawed hand, then at him. "We don't. You run. Take your child and leave me." Mira woke up, frightened. "No, I won't leave you." Rylan grabbed her shoulders. "Mira, listen to me." But Sereth raised her hand. "She's right," she said. "We fight together or we die alone." Outside, the storm raged harder, lightning flashing across the sky. The dropship landed near the cave, its engines roaring. Soldiers stepped out, 6 draconian hunters armed and ready. Rylan looked at Sereth. "Can you still fight?" Her lips curved in a small, dangerous smile. "Enough to burn the sky one last time." She stepped outside, her wings opening wide despite the pain. The storm wrapped around her, lightning flashing like fire through her scales. Her eyes burned gold as she faced the hunters. "Commander Sereth," one of them shouted through the storm, "you are a traitor to your kind. Surrender and die with honor." Sereth's voice rose like thunder. "Honor is not in killing the innocent. It is in protecting them." And then the sky erupted. Sereth roared, releasing a burst of flame so bright it turned the night white. The hunters fired back, their energy beams cutting through the rain. Rylan ran to cover, firing from the rocks, protecting Mira. The air shook with explosions and fire. The storm became their shield. Lightning struck the sand, and every flash showed Sereth fighting like a creature born of both fury and sorrow. Mira screamed as one of the hunters aimed at her father, but Sereth moved faster than thought. She threw herself between them, taking the hit. Her roar echoed across the desert, and the hunter was thrown back by her tail. Rylan shouted, "Sereth!" and ran to her side. She was on her knees, smoke rising from her armor. Her breath was heavy. "Go," she whispered. "They won't stop." Ryland shook his head. "Neither will I." Together, they fired and fought until the last hunter fell. The storm slowly began to fade, leaving behind the smell of burnt sand and silence. Sereth collapsed, her wings half buried in the dust. Mira ran to her, crying, "Please don't go." Sereth smiled weakly. "I'm not leaving yet, little one." Ryland looked at the bodies, the wreckage, and the broken ship. "They'll send more." Sereth nodded faintly. "Yes, but the signal is gone. I destroyed it when I burned the last hunter's core." Ryland sighed. "So we're safe for now." The storm cleared, and the stars returned, shining bright and endless above them. Mira looked up and whispered, "It's pretty." Sereth looked at her too. "It always was. We just forget to look." They stayed together through the night, surrounded by the quiet of the desert, knowing the war wasn't truly over, but something had changed. The fire inside them was no longer for destruction, but for protection. The morning after the storm was quiet, too quiet. Smoke still rose from the sand, curling into the golden light of dawn. The desert looked peaceful, but the silence carried a warning, like a held breath before the next strike. Ryland sat near the burnt wreckage of the draconian dropship, checking his weapon. The power cells were almost empty. He could fix machines, but not miracles. Mira sat beside Sereth, gently cleaning the burn marks on her scales with a wet cloth. The dragon lady's wounds were deep, glowing faintly under her skin, but she didn't flinch. "You should rest," Mira whispered softly. Sereth smiled, weak but calm. "I rest when the fire inside me sleeps, and it never does." Ryland turned his head, frowning. "She's right about one thing, this isn't over. They'll come again. Stronger." Sereth's golden eyes flickered like dying embers. "They already know I've betrayed the Draconian Empire. My former commander, Lord Karin, will come for me himself. He doesn't forgive betrayal." Mira looked up. "Is he a bad dragon?" Sereth's voice dropped. "Worse. He's a dragon who believes mercy is weakness." Ryland stood up, kicking sand over the fire. "Then we better not be here when he arrives. I know an old outpost in the western cliffs. If we reach it before night, we might hold him off." But Sereth shook her head. "You cannot run from a storm like Karin. You face it, or it swallows you." By midday, the heat was unbearable. They moved across the open desert, the horizon shimmering. Every sound made Ryland tense. The desert wind carried strange whispers, like voices inside static. Suddenly, Sereth stopped. Her eyes turned toward the sky. "He's here," she said. Ryland looked up. The sun disappeared behind a shadow, massive wings, black as obsidian, spreading across the sky. The air trembled as a deep roar rolled through the dunes. "Get down!" Ryland shouted. A massive form crashed into the sand. Lord Karin, the Draconian warlord. His armor gleamed with molten gold, his eyes burning with pure hatred. When he spoke, the ground itself seemed to shake. "Sereth of the fallen flame," he growled. "You have betrayed your kind for these creatures?" Sereth stood tall despite her wounds. "They are not creatures. They are life, the same as us." Karin's laugh was cruel. "You speak like a human. How far you have fallen." Ryland raised his blaster. "You'll fall too if you take one more step." The warlord turned his head slowly toward him. "And what are you, little mechanic? A man with a toy?" Ryland's hand didn't shake. "A father protecting his daughter. That's more power than you'll ever understand." Karin roared and unleashed a burst of fire. The ground exploded, throwing sand into the air. Ryland fell back, coughing, pulling Mira close. Sereth leaped between them, spreading her wings. Her roar shook the desert. "You'll not touch them." The two dragons clashed, flame against flame, sky against sky. The heat was blinding. Ryland could barely see as he pulled Mira to cover behind a dune. Lightning split the sky as the battle raged above. Karin's power was overwhelming. Each strike of his claws cracked the ground. Sereth fought with every ounce of strength left, her fire burning bright but fading fast. Karin sneered. You've gone soft, Sereth. Caring for humans has made you weak. Seretha's voice echoed like thunder. Caring has made me stronger. With a cry that shook the world, she slammed into him, driving both of them into the sand below. The explosion lit the desert like sunrise. Rylan covered Myra's eyes as shockwaves ripped across the dunes. When the smoke cleared, Karin stood, wounded but smiling, while Sereth lay on the ground, struggling to rise. Pathetic, Karin hissed. You could have been a queen. Instead, you die a traitor. He raised his claw to strike. Rylan didn't think, he acted. He ran toward the fallen dropship, tearing open a control panel. Sparks flew as he rewired the core. Come on. Come on. Sereth saw him. Rylan, no. You'll die. He looked at her and smiled. If that's what it takes to protect her. And you. Mira screamed. Daddy, don't. Karin turned his head too late. Rylan hit the switch. The dropship core exploded in a storm of light and fire, swallowing everything in blinding white. When the light faded, the desert was silent again. Karin was gone, nothing left but scorched glass. Mira crawled through the dust, crying, Daddy, Daddy! Sereth dragged herself toward the blast site, her heart burning. She found him lying there, broken, but breathing, barely. Rylan, she whispered, her voice shaking. You foolish, brave human. He opened his eyes weakly. Did we win? Sereth nodded slowly. Yes, but the cost was heavy. He smiled faintly. Then it was worth it. Mira hugged her father, sobbing. Don't leave me, Daddy. Rylan touched her face softly. I'm not going anywhere, little one. Not while you still need me. Sereth looked at them both. A broken man and his child. And something inside her heart shifted forever. For the first time in her long life, she felt what it truly meant to belong. She turned toward the horizon, where dawn began to rise again, golden and endless. The war isn't over, she said quietly. But as long as this child's light burns, I will fight to protect it. Mira smiled through her tears. You promise? Sereth nodded, placing one clawed hand over her chest. I promise, on the fire that still burns within me. The desert was calm again. The sun rose over the dunes, painting the world in soft gold and red. Smoke from the battle still hung in the air, but the silence felt different now. Peaceful, almost sacred. Rylan lay inside a small shelter made from the wrecked dropship panels. His wounds were healing slowly, thanks to Seretha's fire energy. Every day, she shared a little of her strength to keep him alive. But each time she did, her own light faded. Mira stayed close to both of them, refusing to leave her father's side. She talked to Sereth often, telling stories, asking questions, drawing shapes in the sand. The dragon lady would listen with a quiet smile, though her eyes seemed to look far beyond the horizon. One evening, as the twin suns of Vara 9 set, painting the sky crimson, Sereth stood on a high dune, staring at the fading light. Her scales shimmered softly, dimmer than before. Rylan limped up behind her. You're getting weaker, he said quietly. She didn't turn. Every flame burns brightest before it fades. He frowned. You gave me too much of your energy. You shouldn't have. Sereth finally looked at him. If I hadn't, you would have died. And she... Her eyes drifted toward Mira, who was chasing fireflies near the shelter. She would have lost her father. That is something I could not let happen. Rylan sighed, guilt in his eyes. You've already lost everything because of us. Sereth shook her head slowly. No, Rylan. I found something worth living and dying for. The wind whispered across the sand, carrying the scent of ash and life mixed together. That night, Mira sat beside Sereth, resting her head against her warm scales. You're not going to leave us, right? She asked in a small voice. Sereth hesitated. Little one, I will always be with you. But I mean really here, Mira said softly. Like, when I wake up, you'll still be there. Sereth smiled sadly. Even if you cannot see me, my flame will stay with you. It lives in your heart now. Mira didn't fully understand, but she hugged Sereth tightly. You're my dragon mama. Sereth's eyes filled with golden tears that shimmered in the moonlight. She whispered, and you are the daughter of fire. The next morning, the horizon glowed red, not with sunrise, but with fire. A massive draconian fleet had entered the skies. Hundreds of ships, dark and silent, covering the sun like an eclipse. Ryland's heart dropped. They found us again. Sereth's wings opened slowly. They came for me. They won't stop until I am gone. Ryland stepped forward. Then we'll fight together. But she stopped him gently. No, this is my fight now. He shook his head. You'll die. Sereth's golden eyes met his. Maybe, but if I don't stop them, everyone will die, not just us. Mira ran toward her. No, you can't go. Sereth knelt down and placed a clawed hand on her shoulder. Remember what I told you, little one. My flame lives in you. Be brave, be kind, and protect life, every life. Mira cried and held onto her as tightly as she could. But Sereth gently lifted her hand and placed it over Myra's chest. This is where I'll stay, she whispered. Then she turned toward the sky. Her wings unfolded wide, broken, but still beautiful. With one mighty beat, she rose into the air, fire trailing behind her. The battle in the sky was like nothing Ryland had ever seen. Sereth flew straight into the heart of the fleet, her flames cutting through the darkness. The ships fired plasma bursts, missiles, and beams of light, but she didn't stop. Her roar filled the heavens, shaking the very ground. Each explosion painted the sky with fire. Each scream of metal echoed like thunder. Ryland held Mira close as they watched, tears streaming down their faces. She's doing it, he whispered. She's saving us. High above, Sereth reached the lead ship, the Draconian command vessel. Her wings were torn, her body burning, but her eyes were fierce. For every innocent life you took, she roared. For every child you made cry, this is my promise. She unleashed one final burst of pure fire, a golden inferno that swallowed the fleet. The explosion lit the entire desert, brighter than the sun's. When the light faded, the ships were gone. The sky was clear, but so was Sereth. Days passed. The desert was quiet again. Ryland fixed his ship, and Mira helped him, her tiny hands carrying tools too big for her. Sometimes at night, when the wind blew just right, they both swore they could hear a soft roar. Far away, gentle, like a whisper in the stars. Mira looked up at the sky one evening and said, Daddy, do you think she can still see us? Ryland smiled faintly. No doubt about it. She's watching every step we take. Mira hugged her knees, looking at the stars. She kept her promise. Ryland nodded. Yes, she gave her flame, so others could have light. Moral of the story: real strength doesn't come from power or anger. It comes from kindness, sacrifice, and love. Even the fiercest fire can become light when it burns for others. If you felt the fire of Sereth's story, the courage, the bond, the love, then don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share the story, because somewhere, even in the darkest night, a little flame is waiting to rise again.